Well, hello there, darlings. So I am still in the great old state of Texas, and I am stuck in Houston traffic. So I basically am bored, and I'm gonna film a discussion video right now. Fucker. I also have road rage. This may or may not go well. Maybe if your babies are around, you should put headphones in. What I want to talk about this video is, I've been thinking, since reading Children of Blood and Bone, or since maybe everybody else read it, and I've been hearing everybody else's thoughts on it since it came out, because I read it a couple months before it came out, because Bethany is fucking fabulous, and she sent me the arc. And have I told you lately she's my favorite human for that? Because she totally is. Anyway, so since the book came out and is available to the public and everybody's getting to read it, and I've been hearing thoughts in it, and then also The Bells came out not that long ago by Danielle Clayton, and she said a thing on Twitter which kind of sparked a little bit of a humdinger, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. People got all out of shape because she said in a tweet that she wishes more black people would review her books. She did not say she didn't wish people who weren't black would read them. She didn't say she didn't want people who weren't black to review them. She said she wished more people of color would review it if they've read it and are read and review it. And people got all bent out of shape and shit, but I totally 100% see why she said it, and I agree with her. Why do I agree with her? I agree with her because, having read Children of Blood and Bone, I did film a review for it, which I fucking gushed over, but I try not to get too deep into it because the book wasn't out yet. And I utterly fail at talking about anything content-wise without spoiling something. And considering how much I hate any little piece of a hint of a type of a kind of minute atom of a spoiler, I try to avoid doing that to anybody else. So now the book's out, she gonna talk. Ready? Okay, cool. So Children of Blood and Bone, the main character, Zaylee, is a Magi, or she's descended from Magi. These particular group of people, the whole book is set in like a West African fantasy world. Now, the magically gifted people, or the people who are descended from those who are magically gifted, are darker skinned than the other people, and they have white hair and is stick straight. Those who have access to their magic, their hair gets super coily, and it's kind of a visual representation of their power. Now, when Bethany told me that she was sending me Children of Blood and Bone, I went on the author's website and was basically a nosy fuck and subscribed to everything that I could subscribe to because I fucking love her. She's amazeballs. Anyway, she has a writing blog, and she does talk about using formulas and plot formulas, and you can tell a little that she uses them. Now, that does not make the book terrible by any means. It's just like the execution of the formula part was a little clunky, and you can kind of see where it was basically like a part 1, part 2, part 3, like an ABC, and where you can kind of basically do the calculus backwards and get that formula. What the fuck ever. Wasn't a big deal, but I can see why that would irritate some people. But what made the book fabulous for me was the addressing of so many of the cultural issues, and by culture I mean like intercultural, not like culture with like our culture versus another culture, but issues that I faced within like my own little circle and group of people, black folk problems basically, that were addressed in this book. And it just fucking floored me to see them not only laid out one behind the other, but then put in this fantasy setting. So when I was a kid, I would have loved to have read that, because, you know, they have a lot of these books for like black children about self-love, like your dark skin is beautiful, your curly hair, your kinky hair, your fuzzy hair, your afro, whatever, it's all gorgeous. But I mean, it basically reads as an instruction book or like a really blatant self-help. Like, even as a kid, I didn't like those kind of books, like your body and me, or you and your body, or whatever the fuck that book is. They give all little girls and they turn like 12, that kind of thing. I don't really like those kind of books. I like it better when the information is given to me a little differently. I learn better through like examples and scenarios. I don't want you to just tell me this. I want to see the situation surrounding it so I can kind of see why it is and what's going to happen and blah blah blah. That's just me. So to have gotten this kind of information in a fantasy book, I would have read it so many times as a kid, so many fucking times, because so the issues that she brought up that just fucking tickled the shit out of me were like basically the black on black hate that's directed at each other. Like, there's the light skin versus dark skin thing that was addressed in this book. In Children of Blood and Bone, the magic warders were darker skinned, and that marked them as being other. And the lighter skinned people who already didn't like magic use that as just basically is almost like a mark of Cain among certain people. And there are even certain, like when I was a kid, there are even certain families that like if their kid was darker skinned than them, they just treated the darker skin than their siblings. They treated the darker skinned child like crap. And it's just so fucking irritating to me. But it happened. That's a real fucking thing. Like that exists, and it is a legit problem even still today. I'd hope it's not as bad and prevalent as it was when I was a kid, but nonetheless, 'tis a thing. That was there. Then there was the issue of the hair. The magi, or the magic wielders, I keep calling them, their hair was stick straight, basically until they came into their power. And when their power, basically when they all had their power, the hair was kinky curly, but without it, it was just stick straight. And it became like a sign of beauty, because their magic for them is also like religious. It's not like witches and wizards and you just have magic. It was like, to them, it was a sign of the gods' benevolence. It was a sign of their the gods' love for them, that they have these powers, and they were proud of it and just glad of it. And so like every sign that they had these powers and that they were different, for them was a mark of beauty. So you have like these children who are darker skinned and have this curly hair, and instead of, you know, being jealous of others whose hair was, you know, straighter, prettier, or people who were lighter skinned, they were glad for those differences. They didn't want to be like the other people. They're like, they loved it because that was basically like the mark of beauty for them. It was something that they appreciated and they loved as a sign of their power, because their power was a connection to their gods. So that I really liked, because like I said, that was a big fucking deal to children. It harkens back to like slave stuff. Like, I hate to say slave mentality because it sounds like one of those stupid ass super woke people who every time somebody says something they don't like, you just didn't grow out of that slave mentality. Shut up, fuckface, you idiot. Fuck it. Anyway, but it's kind of, it goes back to those ideas of where, because it was a thing that kids said to me, or the kids said around me when I was a kid in school. Now this is like in the 90s where everybody was just like, black people, you gotta stick together. It's stupid, but it just, the kids would tease each other. They would say shit like, you know, the lighter skinned kids were the house slaves and the darker skinned kids were the field slaves, because it comes from that mentality where like the lighter slaves who look less black were favored over the darker skinned ones. So they were given like duties in the house and allowed to like serve and clean the house instead of like working and toiling in the fucking field and getting beat the shit out of all the time. So there was still that mentality in like 95 when I was a kid. It was cool to see that represented and addressed in a positive manner in a book, in a fantasy book, and especially in a book that is for children, because it's a YA book. So there was the hair thing, then there's, you know, the hair thing, especially now with so many people like going natural, and other people still who are like, I'm not getting rid of my perm, but they and I've heard the term used in my direction before, and they refer to people who still have like curly or kinky coily hair or whatever as Kizzy. Kizzy being Kunta Kinte's daughter in that movie Roots, basically a slave. You saying I look like a slave by the head. That person got cussed out to an inch of their fucking life. But I mean, that's a mentality that still exists, and it was a black person that said it to me. So I mean, and I can remember before someone having said to me, I forgot what it was, but if y'all have seen me with makeup on several times, and I like to wear my purple lipstick, and one particular one I had, it was like this weird pinky purple, and someone said to me, oh, I like that one, it makes you look lighter skinned, and I'm like, because that was something to aspire to, apparently, and I'm like, that's not why I wore it, I like this color, but to say, you know, that looks good on you because it makes you look lighter skin, like that's the kind of shit that I'm talking about, this kind of thing that gets addressed in this book. So I'm not saying that a person who's not African American wouldn't have picked up on these or wouldn't have dealt with these, but unless you are like kind of deeply entrenched into that culture, you're not really gonna see it. I don't think. You can see it to some extent, but you won't see all of it unless someone tells you if you're not familiar with it. So again, I can see why Danielle Clayton said she wishes more black people would review her books, because I feel the same. Because if I didn't know these things were in there, I would have missed out on this book. And yet people are saying the book is good, but people are saying the book is good because of the magic. Like everybody in EW, Entertainment Weekly or whatever, is saying she's the next J.K. Rowling. It's magic and blah, 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 blah. But I haven't read the article, so I don't know if they address the cultural thing, but I don't see too much of, other than people saying, oh, it's based in like this West African setting. I don't see people like tripping balls because of all the African American or the black or the African or whatever. I don't see people addressing like the color issues or the black issues that she brings up in it. So if Bethany hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known until I just so happened to pick it up, and I would have been floored. And that you know, that makes a difference in whether or not a person will read a book or not, because especially I'm not a big YA fantasy person anyway. So, and then YA fantasy has been disappointing me a lot in the year that I started BookTube, so I may not have picked up this book for a very long time, if at all, even though the cover's awesome. I might have just bought it and the shit might have just sat on my fucking bookshelf. But Bethany, who is cognizant of these things and just fucking picked up on it and was like, you would fucking love this, and she was 100% correct. So, I mean, like I said, those kind of things and that kind of like awareness is what makes a difference, I think, in liking the book and loving the book, because it was written beautifully. When I say written beautifully, I don't mean the writing style. I mean like the way she maneuvered all of these issues into this like high fantasy setting. It was just fucking amazing. I do think there is a little bit of a divide in whether or not you like a book, if you are unaware of these issues ethnically. But I also am very happy that people who are not African American are reading this book, because it's a fucking good book. And these kind of discussions make them aware of these kind of issues, because there are like families who have adopted little black children, and these little black children go to school with other little black children, and maybe the parents don't know that these are things their kids have to fucking deal with because they didn't grow up African American. They're whatever culture other they are, and we're awesome enough to adopt people, but you know, there's that learning curve. And so like these kind of things and these kind of discussions make so many people aware of it, and that's fucking awesome. It's amazing. I fucking love it. So I 100% agree with her, and more black people should review it. I'm not saying less people who aren't African American should. Everybody should review it, but so people can like look at this review and say, oh, I didn't like this, and this, but I like this, and then look at the other person's review and go, oh, but they did bring up all these black issues and blah 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 blah, and meld the two together and decide if it's something I want to read or not. It gives like a better picture, I guess. It's just what I'm saying with that. So take it with a grain of salt, bag of dicks, whatever. That's just how I feel about it. I think she's 100% correct. I 100% agree with her, and y'all better be careful fucking around with Danielle Clayton on Twitter. She is a clapback queen, and I fucking love it. She will get you right. You better leave that lady alone. And she knows what she's talking about. She's a sensitivity reader. So, I mean, remember that for y'all start just tripping balls out. There's also a pretty good discussion, too, about if you have read that article about her being a sensitivity reader and why she kind of developed the business that she did, and said that there was a need for these sensitivity readers, and it was just for the issues that I just fucking laid out for you guys. They would help you realize like why you put a thing in there and you included this diverse character, and it's cool that you did that. But if you are not 100% familiar with this culture, then you will miss things or mess up things or make things inaccurate in a way that could be harmful. So, or you just flat out miss them altogether. So if someone who was not African or African American or black or whatever you would like to call them had written a book like Children of Blood and Bone, some things could have gone horribly wrong if she didn't know of these issues, or she could have actually like further dug into those stereotypes and tropes that are harmful and made that split accidentally, just trying to make it so that, I mean, this is pretty blatant. Even without being a black person, you would know, like, it's don't say like the light-skinned people are nice and the dark-skinned people are evil, but that kind of thing, or why sensitivity readers exist, and to also like further make other people aware of these issues who are writing the books, and explain them like a better way to do it in a, you know, non-harmful manner, but also in a way that brings people makes people aware of, so to say. So those are my thoughts on that. What do you didn't y'all see that tweet in the subsequent conversation, or read the article about Daniel Clayton being a sensitivity reader? And did you read the bells? Because I read the bells. I didn't finish it. No, I had an arc and I took too long to read it and they revoked it before I finished it. I had a neg alley, so I have to go actually buy the book. But I want you to let me know if you've read both, particularly, like, what do you think about the way that those issues were handled? Or if you didn't notice them, are you going to go back and read it now that you know those kind of issues are in there, or do more research into it? Or if you just still don't like either of the books, let me know down in the comments while I'm still sitting in this damn traffic. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all later. Bye-bye.